I'll refer maybe to a few talks that I've given. I gave a talk today in Phil Singapore about the Filecoin master plan, and go check that out. And also Molly from the engineering team described the broader roadmap, but I'll give you some of the highlights now. So, step one for the Filecoin network is to amass a lot of hardware and build the world's largest decentralized storage network. We've basically done that, right? We built the blockchain, we built the network, we amassed the hardware, we solved that problem, and it's amazing to see the success so far. Step two is to onboard a lot of data, a lot of really valuable, useful data and useful applications. So the next step that everyone should be working on is bringing more really valuable use cases and applications. So go talk to businesses that need really cheap, valuable, useful data storage. Go talk to universities, go talk to governments. Those groups usually have large amounts of data that they want stored verifiably, and Filecoin is a great use case for those. So talk about bring some of those online. Part of this period is to improve the usability in terms of the developer tools. So there's a lot of projects that are building developer tools for different verticals. We call these Filecoin on-ramps. So like Web3.storage, NFT.storage, and many other tools are helping build on-ramps to bring a lot of useful data this way. One of the next steps there is also the retrieval side. So building the retrieval market to enable CDN level retrieval. So we want a CDN style content delivery network sub-second page loads on all of the content on Filecoin. Like that's what we're going for. And there are many teams working on this right now. They're part of the retrieval markets working group. They've been demoing a lot of the work, and they'll be. There's some teams ready to launch their alphas in Q4 this year, so that'll be pretty exciting. And we hope that in Q1 and Q2 next year, we can scale that up to tens of thousands of users, hundreds of thousands of users, and get now proper CDN delivery everywhere. So if we can do that, we'll have like really fast, we'll have really cheap data storage, really fast delivery, and we can serve a lot of really valuable data to people. Potentially, like at that point, we'll be ready for video. At that point, we can do like video processing and video distribution. So maybe we can do this video channel in the future through that, maybe in Q2 or Q3. Then after that, the step three in the plan is to bring computation to the Filecoin network. So that we can do that first by adding the FVM, so the Filecoin virtual machine, to bring smart contracts into the network. Then after that, we want to be able to do computational pipelines on top of the data. So think of being able to do all of the computational work that the cloud, the Web2 cloud provides. So think of long-running pipelines, things that you would put in Amazon Lambda or EC2 or other clouds like that. And we're going to bring all of that kind of utility to Filecoin. And we can do that by building layer 2 compute over data networks. And there'll be many built over the next year or two. And these they'll be based on different applications and different use cases. Some of them might use zero knowledge, some of them might use fully homomorphic encryption, some of them might use optimistic protocols. And so either way, we can end up with really large-scale data pipelines on top of Filecoin, and hopefully even machine learning data pipelines. Like that would be really amazing. Once we do that, we are ready to actually cross the chasm and bring all of the Web2 applications into Web3. That's going to take 2 to 3 years, and it's going to take 2 to 3 years for the entire blockchain space. One other thing I forgot to mention, scalability. So we want to be able to do, most of the blockchain space is working on hundreds of thousands or millions of transactions per second. We want to hit billions of transactions per second, or trillions of transactions per second. That's much, much harder. And we want to do it with a consensus protocol that we describe as hierarchical consensus. That's going to be shipping sometime next year or the year after. And yeah, so that's the roadmap. So again, amass hardware, and we've done that. So kudos to the Filecoin community for doing all of this already. Step 2 is to onboard massive amounts of valuable data into the network, make it retrievable. And step 3 is to bring computational pipelines to the network. So that's the roadmap overall.
Hi, my name's Molly. I lead the PL Entres team, which works on a lot of the core capabilities inside of the Filecoin, IPFS, libp2p networks. There's a lot of research improvements that we work on. We do a lot of like core maintenance and stewardship of implementations like Lotus and Kubo and Go, JS, and Rust libp2p. And we're also maintaining chunks of infrastructure in the network, like the IPFS.io gateway and other things like that. Learned about IPFS actually very recently once it started, and I started participating in the IPFS community as just a 5% open source contributor, and so knew a number of people from school and from kind of my friends' network who were working at Protocol Labs and were open source contributors in IPFS, and so I started participating just where I could, trying to learn more about the technology, and at the time I was working in education technology, so I was building Google Classroom, and one of my big frustrations was that the stack at Google was all very centrally organized. So as a teacher or student, you wanted to access content that was there in the local school network, but that you didn't have on your device. You had to go request that data from a distant Google data center in order to turn in an assignment or watch a YouTube video that the student next to you was watching. And I was like, wow, this is so inflexible. The internet and the way that we're accessing content isn't adaptive to the way that we want to collaborate with each other locally in local communities. And that was one of the areas that really pushed me deeper into the IPFS ecosystem. And so after spending time at Google, I was like, I'm really interested in jumping into a more ambitious project, someplace where I can really make a difference and where I feel like my capabilities are going to be, the delta between whether or not something succeeds and I can have impact. And so that's what caused me to go from being a 5% open source contributor to applying and joining full time. And so I joined as the first product manager on the Go IPFS team, which is now called Kubo. 6 months later, I was running the IPFS project, which was a super fast, exciting ramp up. And then about a year and a half after that, started also managing the Filecoin network mainnet launch. And so since then, I've been running IPFS, Filecoin, libp2p, IPLD, DRAND, kind of engineering, research, and product development at Protocol Labs. It's been really cool.
The next question is, of all the projects in the Filecoin system, can you what's your main focus right now?
Oh, it's so hard because my team covers so many different projects in the PL ecosystem, and so I think I spend a lot of my time personally working closely with the Filecoin development team. So this is Lotus and the Filecoin virtual machine and other ways in which we are upgrading the core capabilities of the Filecoin network. So I'm also involved with the core devs community and collaborating with other Filecoin implementations like Lotus and Forest. But I also, I started out on IPFS, and that is very, very close to my heart. And so I also spend a chunk of time working with teams that are collaborating on the, these are two overlapping networks. And so there's a lot of work being done to make sure that data that's stored by Filecoin storage providers is accessible on IPFS gateways and is retrievable by IPFS nodes running inside Brave browsers. And so making sure that this whole ecosystem interoperates smoothly and that data can onboard and be useful and power useful kind of ecosystem applications. There's a couple of different groups that I work with closely. There's of course the core IPFS maintainers community, and that a lot of their work is visible at the IPFS thing that happened in Iceland a couple months ago, but also with the Bedrock team and other product teams around data onboarding to make sure that there's really smooth, useful data being stored in the network that's empowering lots of end users to benefit from the technology we're building.
So my name is Colin Everin, but my friends call me Proto-Colin. And I'm the ecosystem lead at Protocol Labs, helping grow the IPFS and Filecoin projects. And I'm just super excited to talk to the Korean community. It's been a huge community of ours right from the get-go, back from IPFS, early 2015, through Space Race and through when we launched Filecoin. And so I'm just super excited to continue engaging with your community.
The next question is, how did you come up with the Filecoin and IPFS, and how did you get into it?
How did I get into it? Yeah. So I come from a business background. I used to work at McKinsey and in investing at Bain Capital. I went to Stanford Business School. And I thought I could bring a different kind of skill set to the Web3 space to help accelerate adoption. This was back in 2017 when it was mostly developers and researchers. And a really good friend of mine named Ryan Zur, he was working at Polychain at the time. He introduced me to Juan, and I just absolutely fell in love with the mission to upgrade the internet, to make it faster, safer, more resilient to attack, and more open. And so Juan and I hit it off about 5.5 years ago. I came on board and I've just been on this incredible journey to grow the IPFS and Filecoin ecosystems ever since.
Last but not least, For all the projects that you're doing right now in the Filecoin, can you especially like kind of what's your main focus right now?
Yeah. So I'm doing a talk just in a minute on the Filecoin master plan, and that comes in three main phases.
Three main phases,
right?
yes.
So step one is amass as much hardware as possible to the Filecoin network to build the largest decentralized storage network in the
Yes.
world, which we have largely done. And that's been a huge focus, working with storage providers in Korea and all over the world to bring hardware to the network itself and build a moat around Filecoin, right? Number two is onboard as much storage to the network as possible to safeguard humanity's data.
Yes.
And so we have a ton of initiatives around doing onboarding of data, business development, bringing really inspirational data sets and filling up the whole network with data, which also helps storage providers run their businesses. And then third, which I'm really, really excited about, is bringing compute to the Filecoin network. So upgrading the software to bring smart contracts, compute networks, hierarchical consensus, and scalability to the Filecoin network. These are major, major inflection points for Filecoin, where the growth of the applications and utility of the Filecoin network could just reach an inflection point. The first one of that is the FVM, the Filecoin virtual machine, which launches in Q1, which brings a huge multi-billion-dollar DeFi economy to Filecoin, all sorts of smart contracts and new use cases. And so we're super focused on upgrading this Filecoin software to bring more utility to the data in the network through smart contracts, compute, and finally scalability in the consensus algorithm.